Dear community, now I'm going to walk you through the highlights which what I have gathered from Berkshire Hathway's this Warren Buffett's letter to the shareholders, the recent letter 2018 annual letter. Now here he says one thing he says is focus on the forest and not on the trees. With this he means that the shareholder should focus on the entire portfolio rather than focusing on individual companies which are there in the portfolio. Uh, he is referring to the fact that all of the decisions of the companies might not be correct, but overall the forest is growing. So one should focus on all of the portfolio rather than analyzing each and every company which have not performed well. Now second thing is here he also says that if you look at the entire of Berkshire's portfolio, then there are five different kinds of grooves which he talks of. Maybe the five different, you can say, arms in the portfolio, which are, let me tell you what they are. The first four of them are differentiated clusters of business and financial assets, whereas the fifth one is huge and diverse insurance operations. Now he is highlighting this insurance operations as the fifth arm or the fifth groove because insurance business is giving him, and in the later part of this letter he talks in detail about insurance being, because there the premium comes in advance and that money lies with as floating money with the company. Then and only during the time of claims that money goes out. So that float, it provides Berkshire floating capital, and wherever it is put to use, that those places provide returns. So these are the five different arms. Like four are the different businesses and financial assets, and the fifth one is huge and diverse insurance options. Now another point he also says here is that the prime goal of Berkshire Hathaway is in deployment of shareholders' capital in buying ably managed business. That is one part, either wholly or partly, and also buying them at reasonable, sensible prices, not at any arbitrary prices. Next, he mentions about adjusted EBITDA. So, adjusted EBITDA, he says that generally, like, there is a differentiation in how Warren uh, understands it and how what the CEOs and Wall Street tells about it. So what Warren says that this adjusted EBITDA, which the CEOs and maybe the market, they say that okay, it's nothing, whereas he especially emphasizes on this that if the company is paying out to the shareholders or to the management in terms of stock based compensation, then that is also a cost to the company, and it cannot be simply put under adjusted EBITDA and shoved off. It is an expense that the company has incurred. Next point which struck me was that Berkshire has saved $14.7 billion in taxes. Why? Because they have not paid capital gain tax out of their 173 billion portfolio, because they have not sold their stocks. They are just investing and reinvesting in it and holding it. So the capital gain tax would only apply when they sell it. So that is the reason he is saying that this $14.7 billion have been saved if in taxes. Next point, he says that out of the total 174 billion dollar that Berkshire has, 112 billion is put into safe options, which are like US Treasury bills and other cash equivalents. And there 20 billion he is keeping as hardcore cash. And this is something that he has promised as as the chairman of Berkshire, that they will always keep this 20 billion in cash for unforeseen circumstances to avoid any external calamity. In those kinds of scenarios, they will have this cash. And he says that, so now the next part, he is talking about selling of stocks. So there he says that he buys stocks, he invests in businesses and good businesses, that too good businesses. So he says that truly good businesses are exceptional to find, and when you find it, what is the reason to sell it? So like basically he is referring to long term investments, very long term investments, which they do. When they buy, they hold on, another part that I would in one point he is also talking about the mindset of an investor versus the ones of and consumers. So here he is. I found it a little funny. Like he is talking about those shareholders who want to sell their Berkshire Hathway shares. So he says that maybe why they are selling, like he is not able to understand, and he just as a humor he says that maybe they want to become consumers from investors, so that is why they are selling it. And he says that he and Charlie Munger, they do not have such plans because of joining this consumer group, and they are rather good as investors, and perhaps they will become big spenders in their old age. Now he is already 88 and Charlie is 95, and he says that perhaps sometime when they in their old age they will become spenders, and then they will think of selling off their Berkshire's shares. Till then they are holding it because they are investors. Then he is very particular about uh, adhering to righteousness of management, and he clearly says that if the founders of the company, or if the management or top management of the company, if they go about a little bit of chalta hai attitude, then just the subordinates, they will also do the same, and overall that is the kind of culture that will come into the company. Then one whole page he talks about insurance business, which I'm not going to say much right now. Next, he talks about funding of businesses, and there he says that primarily there are two sources of funding. One is debt funding and other is equity funding, and debt funding he discourages, whereas equity fundings they do. And he also says that additionally Berkshire has two more ways of funding a business. How? One is through the float is the money that they have from their insurance business, so he's telling them as float because that is then money lying idle with them. And next is through deferred income taxes, because that is also a surplus money that they have because they have not sold their shares, their stocks, and in turn have not paid capital gains. So they have kept that money through deferred tax, and that is also they are using to fund the business, which is $14.7 billion, not a small sum of money. I would like to have a small percentage of it. more or less these are some of my takeaways from it. And then he talks about compounding as the eighth wonder, where he says that he made his first investment on March 11, 1942, which is 77 years from now, uh, back. And he says that at that particular point of time, he invested 114 point something, like close to $115 in uh, city service company, like in one stock. And he says that at that point of time, if that much $115 was invested in S&P 500 index fund also, then today that would have grown to 606,000 six. I'm just forgetting. It's somewhere like $600,000 pre-tax. And if that money was put in gold, then it would have grown to some, let me see, like $2,400, close to $2,500. So he's just saying that, see how the American businesses give so much returns, whereas what the metal give, like gold. So, and another point that he also mentions is that this power of compounding, if it is 11.8, this power of compound, like a huge difference that comes up in even by 1% over this 77 years, in this 77 years time. So all in all, he is this is a very good read, the letter, because more than a annual letter, it's also like a teaching document, which he shares with us, the investor community, to learn a lot from the man himself. Thank you.